I stared at my reflection in the polished silver spoon, watching my face distort as I turned it slowly. Anything to avoid making eye contact with my father-in-law. Across the mahogany dining table, the tension in the room was thick, enough to spread on toast. I'm Karen, and this is the story of how I turned my in-laws' contempt into my greatest masterpiece. So Karina's Everett's voice cut through the clinking of expensive china. Noah tells me you're still pursuing that hobby of yours. He emphasized the word hobby like it was something he'd found stuck to the bottom of his Italian leather shoes. I set down my spoon, forcing myself to meet his steel gray eyes. My art isn't a hobby, Everett. I sold 3 pieces last month. Lily, my sister-in-law, didn't even try to hide her snicker. For what, a few hundred each? The cleaning staff here makes more than that in a week. My husband Noah squeezed my hand under the table, but remained silent. Classic Noah, always trying to keep the peace. Actually, I started, but Everett waved his hand dismissively. Speaking of money, he continued, the family's considering expanding into the Asian market. We could use some additional funding. He paused, taking a calculated sip of his wine. I understand you have quite a collection of paintings gathering dust in your studio. The fork in my other hand trembled slightly. They're not gathering dust, they're being prepared for darling Amanda, my mother-in-law interrupted with practiced grace. Perhaps you could consider selling them. It would be such a meaningful contribution to the family business. I felt my chest tighten. 5 years of marriage into the Brown family, and they still saw my art as nothing more than a potential cash grab. The worst part, they weren't even trying to be cruel. They genuinely couldn't comprehend that my work meant anything more than dollars and cents. Those paintings aren't for sale, I said firmly, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. They're part of a collection I'm developing. Lily rolled her eyes. A collection for what? The local coffee shop's walls. That's enough, Lily. Noah finally spoke up, but his voice lacked conviction. Everett leaned forward, his expression softening into what he probably thought was fatherly concern. Karina's, dear, I know you enjoy your little creative outlets, but it's time to think practically. The family needs to stand united in this venture. Your paintings could fetch a decent sum in the right market, enough to show you're committed to being a real part of this family. The words real part of this family hit me like a physical blow. I pushed back my chair and stood up, my napkin falling to the floor. Karina's, Noah reached for my arm, but I stepped away. I need some air, I managed to say, heading for the terrace behind me. I heard Everett sigh dramatically. Always so emotional, these creative types, he said to no one in particular. The cool evening air hit my face as I stepped outside. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably a text from my brother Cash, checking how the dreaded family dinner was going. He'd warned me about marrying into the Browns, but love makes you stupid sometimes. Hey, a soft voice said behind me. It was Amanda, holding 2 glasses of wine. She handed me one without a word. Thanks, I muttered, taking a sip. You know, she said, looking out over the manicured garden I used to paint too before I married Everett. I turned to her, surprised. In 5 years she'd never mentioned this. What happened? She smiled sadly. Life happened, family happened, business happened. She paused. Don't let them do to you what I let them do to me. Before I could respond, Noah appeared at the doorway. Dad's asking for us to come back, and he wants to discuss the funding proposal. I looked at my wine glass, then at Amanda, who had already slipped her society wife mask back on. Something shifted inside me, a quiet rage, but also determination coming. I said, but as I walked back to the dining room, my mind was already racing with plans. They wanted to see the value of my art. Fine, I'd show them exactly what it was worth, but not in the way they expected. I sat back down at the table where Everett was already launching into his business pitch, but for the first time I wasn't trying to shrink away from his overwhelming presence. Instead, I was thinking about the email I'd received last week, the one from the prestigious Morton Gallery that I hadn't told anyone about yet. So Carinas Everett concluded, what do you say about selling those paintings? I smiled, feeling the weight of my secret plan like a weapon in my hands. Actually, Everett, I have a different proposal in mind, but let's discuss it at next week's family dinner. The surprise on his face was just the first brushstroke of my masterpiece of revenge, and like any good artist, I was going to take my time making it perfect. The smell of oil paint and turpentine welcomed me as I unlocked my studio door the next morning. Sunlight streamed through the industrial windows, catching Desmos dancing in the air. My sanctuary, my battleground. You're here early, Ria's voice called from her space across the hall. She appeared in my doorway, paint-splattered apron already on, coffee in hand. Rough night with the in-laws. I dropped my bag on the worn leather couch. Let's just say they want to turn my entire collection into startup capital for their latest business venture. Those vultures. Ria crossed the room, settling into her usual spot on my paint-stained armchair. Please tell me you told them to shove it better. I pulled out my phone, opening my email. Read this. Ria's eyes widened as she scrolled. Holy Karen, the Morton Gallery, this is huge. She jumped up, nearly spilling her coffee. Why didn't you tell them about this last night? I walked to my largest canvas, running my fingers along the textured surface, because I want them to understand something bigger than just gallery representation. I want them to see what art can really do. What are you planning? Ria's voice held equal parts curiosity and concern. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Cash's name flashed on the screen. Big brother checking in, I said, putting him on speaker. How bad was it? His lawyer voice was in full effect. About what you'd expect. Everett basically called my art a hobby and suggested I sell everything to fund their new business expansion. Want me to send them a strongly worded letter? Cash's attempt at humor couldn't hide his protective anger. Actually, I said I could use your legal expertise on something else. I explained about the Morton Galler and my developing plan, an art program for underprivileged women. Cash whistled. That's actually brilliant. And you want me to help set up the nonprofit structure? Exactly. I want everything ironclad before I present it to the Browns. Ria suddenly snapped her fingers. Oh my God, Karen, you have to talk to Maria. Remember that program she ran last year? The one that got all that press coverage. My heart raced. Maria had run a successful art therapy program for domestic violence survivors. The local papers had covered it extensively, and several prominent businesses had jumped on board as sponsors. Cash, I said, how quickly can you draft something up? Give me till tomorrow afternoon. But Karen, are you sure about this? It's one thing to stand up to them, but this is playing their game. I looked at my latest piece. A woman emerging from shadows, her face turned toward light. No, Cash, this is changing the game entirely. After hanging up, helped me move canvases around the studio, organizing them into the collection. They would become, each piece told part of a story, women finding their voice, their strength, their light. You know, Ria said, stepping back to study one painting. I never told you about my mom's art. I paused, brushing hand in 15 years of friendship. She'd never mentioned this. She used to paint these incredible landscapes, but my dad, Ria followed hard. He said it was a waste of time and money. She stopped painting when I was 12 last year. I found her old supplies in their attic, everything covered in dust. She just gave up. Ria, I started, but she shook her head. That's why this program matters, Karen. It's not just about revenge or proving something to your in-laws. It's about all the women who were told their art didn't matter. My phone buzzed, an email from the Morton Gallery, requesting a meeting next week. Perfect timing. Want to help me plan my presentation for next week's family dinner? I asked Ria, only if you promise to let me hide in the bushes outside and watch the show. We spent the next hour plotting until my phone buzzed again. Noah, hey, his voice was soft. Can we talk? I'm at the studio. I know I'm outside. I found him in the parking lot leaning against his car. He looked tired. His usual perfect posture slightly slumped. I'm sorry about last night. He said I should have defended you more strongly. Yes, you should have. He ran a hand through his hair. Dad's complicated. He means well. He just doesn't respect anything that can't be measured in profit margins. Noah wince. What are you planning? Karen, I know that look you had last night. I studied my husband's face, the worry lines around his eyes, the tension in his jaw. He was caught between loyalty to his family and love for me. As always, do you trust me? I asked. Of course. Then trust that what I'm about to do isn't about revenge, it's about change, real change. He nodded slowly. Just promise me one thing. Whatever you're planning, make it count. I smiled, thinking of the email from Morton Gallery, the conversation with Cash, and Ria's story about her mother. Oh, it will. It definitely will. The following week arrived too quickly. I smoothed my dress, a deep burgundy number that costs more than I'd ever admit to my brother Cash, and followed Noah into his parents' house. The familiar scent of Amanda's expensive pottery hit me as we entered. You're late, Lily announced from the living room doorway, Mari already in hand. Dad's been talking about the Asian market expansion for 20 minutes. Traffic, Noah muttered, but I caught Lily's eye roll. We found Everett holding court in the dining room, spreadsheets scattered across the table. Like battle plans. The artists have arrived, he said, not looking up. Noah, come look at these projections. I took my usual seat, noticing Amanda's slight nod of approval at my choice of dress. Small victories. The potential return on investment is remarkable. Everett continued, pointing at numbers that meant nothing to me. Of course, we'll need significant capital up front. Lily smirked in my direction. Have you reconsidered Dad's offer about your paintings, Carinas? Before I could respond, Noah's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then at me, eyebrows raised, the signal we'd planned. Cash had finished the legal paperwork. Work, actually, I said, my voice stronger. Then I felt. I have news about my work. Wonderful. Everett beamed. I knew you'd come around. I'll have my assistant contact some dealers. The Morton Gallery contacted me last week. The room went silent. Even Lily's perpetual smirk faltered. Morton. Amanda set down her wine glass. The one downtown. I nodded, pulling out my phone. They're interested in featuring my latest collection. Here's the email. Everett took my phone, his reading glasses perched on his nose. His expression remained carefully neutral, but I noticed his grip tightened slightly. This is unexpected, he said. Finally, Lily snatched the phone. Let me see. That her eyes narrowed as she read it. Could be a preliminary inquiry. Doesn't mean anything's confirmed. Actually, I continued, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. I met with them yesterday. They want to feature my work in their upcoming exhibition focusing on emerging artists. Noah reached for my hand under the table, squeezing it gently while Everett cleared his throat. That's interesting. But about our expansion plans, I'm not finished. I stood up, drawing everyone's attention. I have a proposal of my own. Amanda leaned forward slightly, her perfect posture betraying her interest. The gallery exposure is just the beginning. I'm launching an art program for underprivileged women, providing them with resources, training, and opportunities to showcase their work. How charitable, Lily said, making it sound like an insult. It's not charity, I countered. It's investment in human potential, something this family claims to value. Everett's face darkened. Now listen here, the program already has corporate interest. I continued. My brother Cash helped structure it. As a non-profit, we're looking for founding sponsors. You want our money for an art program? Lily laughed. When we're about to expand into no, I cut her off. I want your support, your connections, your influence. In return, the Brown family name gets associated with something more meaningful than profit margins. The silence that followed was deafening. Everett stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You've Been planning this, he said finally, yes, behind our backs like you plan to. Pressure me into selling my work. Colin stood up beside me. Dad, this could be good for everyone. Think about the PR potential. Lily scoffed. For what? Someone to AR, playing with paint for women finding their voice. Amanda said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She met my eyes and I saw something there, recognition, maybe even pride. This is ridiculous. Lily pushed back her chair. Dad, you can't seriously. How much? Everett interrupted. What? How much interest has the gallery expressed financially? Speaking, I named a figure. Lily choked on her martini. That's Everett removed his glasses, cleaning them slowly. Substantial. Yes, I said simply. It is. The room fell silent again, broken only by the tick of the antique clock on the wall. I could feel the shift happening. The subtle redistribution of power, like paint bleeding into water. I'll need to see the program proposal, Everett said. Finally, and the gallery contract, of course, and this doesn't mean I'm agreeing to anything, of course not. He nodded curtly, then turned back to his spreadsheets, but his dismissal didn't sting like it usually did, because I'd seen it, that flash of respect in his eyes, however brief as Noah and I left that night. Amanda caught my arm at the door. That was quite a performance, she whispered. It wasn't a performance. Performance, she smiled, a real smile this time. I know, that's what made it perfect. In the car, Noah let out a long breath. Well, that was just the beginning. I finished for him, thinking of the gallery meeting scheduled for tomorrow. The real work was just starting, and for the first time in years, I couldn't wait to show the Browns exactly what I could do. The Morton Gallery's interior was all clean lines and stark white walls, making my paintings look even more vibrant as the staff carefully hung them. I watched from the center of the room, trying to calm my racing heart. These are even more powerful together than I remembered, Marcus, the gallery director said, stepping back from a large canvas, especially this one. He gestured to my favorite piece, a woman emerging from darkness, her hands raised toward light, the same one I'd been working on when I'd first received their email. The Browns are coming today, he asked, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Yes, my father-in-law insisted on a private viewing before making any decisions about the program funding. Marcus smiled knowingly. Ah, yes, the infamous Everett, your brother Cash warned me about him. The gallery door chimed, and I turned to see Amanda entering alone. She wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my first car, but something about her seemed different, softer. Somehow the others are parking, she said, then stopped short as she took in the gallery. O'Carroll and I held my breath as she moved slowly from painting to painting. Her perfectly manicured hand reached out to almost touch one canvas, then pulled back. This one, she whispered, stopping in front of a piece showing a woman painting over her own reflection. This is the door chimed again. Everett Strohan, followed by Lily and Noah, my husband, immediately came to my side while Lily made a show of checking her phone. Mr. Brown, Marcus stepped forward, hand extended. Welcome to Morton Gallery. Everett shook his hand firmly. Impressive space, though I notice you're not in the financial district. Art belongs where people live, not just where they work, Marcus replied smoothly. Shall we begin the tour for the next 30 minutes? Marcus led them through the exhibition, explaining each piece with the kind of technical knowledge that I knew would appeal to Everett's analytical mind. I watched my father-in-law's face carefully, but his businessman's mask remained firmly in place. And here, Marcus said finally, is the centerpiece of the collection. He gestured to my favorite painting. Notice how the light seems to emanate from within the subject herself, suggesting that transformation comes from internal strength, not external validation. Lily snorted softly. I saw Noah shoot her a warning look. Very emotional, Everett said in the same tone he might use to describe a mild stomach upset, but Let's discuss numbers. What's the expected return on investment for this exhibition? Marcus didn't miss a beat. Our preliminary interest suggests. Dad, Noah interrupted. Maybe we could first talk about the impact of the program itself. The women. It could help the women. It could help pay their bills. You mean? Lily cut in, because last I checked, feelings don't pay mortgages. Actually, a new voice said from the doorway. Art therapy programs have shown significant economic impacts in communities. We all turned to see Ria entering with Maria, the program director I'd mentioned to Cash. Maria carried a sleek portfolio and radiated the kind of confidence that came from years of proving doubters wrong. Maria, I stepped forward. Thank you for coming, everyone. This is Maria, the director I told you about. I wasn't aware this was going to be a committee meeting, Everett said stiffly. Neither was I, Lily added, glaring at me. Maria smiled unruffled. I'm here to share some data about our previous programs, numbers, statistics, economic impact assessments. The language of business, if you will. She opened her portfolio and began laying out documents on a nearby table. I noticed Everett's eyes drawn to the graphs and charts. Despite himself, our last program saw an 80% employment rate among participants. Maria continued, whether through art, sales, teaching, or using their newfound confidence to pursue other careers. 80%. Even Lily looked interested now. Plus significant positive press coverage for our corporate sponsors, Maria added, sliding a stack of newspaper clippings across the table. The kind of publicity money can't buy. Everett picked up one of the articles, adjusting his reading glasses. I held my breath. This is all very impressive, he said finally, but why should the Brown family get involved? What makes this program different from any other charity case? Because it's not charity, I said firmly. It's innovation, investment, transformation, everything the Brown family claims to value. I met his eyes directly. Unless those are just words you use in business meetings. The gallery fell silent. I could feel Collins tense beside me, waiting for his father's reaction. Then Amanda stepped forward, still looking at my paintings. I'll sponsor it. What, Lily and Everett spoke simultaneously. I said, I'll sponsor it with my personal funds. Amanda turned to face her husband. Unless you prefer the family name be officially involved. I watched Everett's face as he looked from his wife to the paintings to the documentation on the table. The businessman in him was calculating, weighing, measuring, but something else was there too, something that looked almost like uncertainty. I'll need to review the full proposal, he said finally. All the numbers, all the projections, of course, Maria said, sliding her business card across the table. As they began discussing details, I caught Amanda's eye. She gave me the smallest of nods, and I understood the real battle was just beginning. But for the first time, I wasn't fighting it alone. The call came at 3 a.m. I fumbled for my phone in the darkness, squinting at Marcus's name on the screen. Hello, my voice was thick with sleep. Carinas, we need to talk now. His usual calm demeanor was gone. Someone's been calling our major donors, warning them about investing in an unstable and proven artist. I sat up straight, fully awake. What they're claiming? You have a history of abandoned projects and financial instability. He paused. They seem to have intimate knowledge of your family connections. My blood ran cold. Lily, I can't confirm that, but no, it's her. It has to be. I was already getting dressed, phone wedged between my ear and shoulder. How bad is it? Too donors have expressed concerns, but Carinas, if this spreads, I'll handle it. I hung up and turned to find Noah watching me from the bed. What's wrong? Your sister is trying to sabotage the gallery, showing. I yanked on my boots. I'm going to her house at 3 a.m. He was already pulling on pants. Let me drive at least. Lily's luxury apartment was 30 minutes away. Noah tried talking me down the entire drive, but his words washed over me like white noise. All I could think about was 5 years of snide comments, dismissive looks, and barely concealed contempt I pressed her buzzer repeatedly until a light flicked on upstairs. Lily appeared at the door in a silk robe, her face masked in cold cream. "Have you lost your mind?" she hissed. "It's the middle of the night." I pushed past her into the apartment. "Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing. Calling gallery donors, really?" She crossed her arms, not bothering to deny it. "I'm protecting our family's interests." Lily Collins stepped between us. "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking about Dad's blood pressure spiking every time he looks at those investment reports about our family's reputation being tied to some feel-good art project." She turned to me, eyes blazing. "You waltz in with your paintings and your programs, acting like you know better than everyone else. I never said that you didn't have to. Looking down on our business, our values. The only person looking down on anyone is you." My voice echoed off her minimalist walls. "You've been undermining me since the day I married Noah. Because you're not one of us, you don't understand what it means to be a brown." "Stop it, both of you." Noah's shout surprised us into silence. "Lily, what you did was wrong, legally wrong. Dad won't thank you for this." Lily's face paled slightly. "Dad doesn't need to know too late." I pulled out my phone, showing her the recording app. "I've got your confession right here." Her eyes widened. "You wouldn't try me?" Collins ran a hand through his hair. "Carinas, maybe we should know." I cut him off. "I'm done playing nice. Here's what's going to happen, Lily. You're going to call every donor you contacted and retract your statements, all of them, by noon today, or what you'll run to Daddy with your little recording." "No, I'll have my brother Cash run to the press with it." I wonder how the business world would react to the Brown family trying to sabotage an art program for underprivileged women. The color drained from her face completely. "Now you're bluffing," she whispered, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Try me noon, Lily. Every donor." I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me. "Why are you doing this? Really, is it just to prove you're better than us?" I looked back at her, standing there in her expensive robe, in her perfect apartment, and felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. "No, I'm doing it because art saved my life when I was at my lowest, because every woman deserves the chance to find her voice, even if people like you think it's worthless." I never said you didn't have to. The drive home was silent as we pulled into our driveway. Noah finally spoke. "That was ruthless. I learned from the best. Your family," he winced, "were not all like that." "No." I thought of Amanda's quiet support, of his own torn loyalties. "You're not." My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Interesting. A donor just called to apologize for their earlier concerns. Said there had been a misunderstanding." I showed Noah the message. "Looks like your sister's starting early." "Carinas," his voice was serious. "Promise me something." "What?" "Promise me this won't change you, the real you, the one who believes in art and healing and second chances." I thought about Lily's face when I threatened her, the rush of power I'd felt. "I promise, but I won't let them change me either, not anymore." The sun was rising as we went back to bed, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. My last thought before drifting off was that sometimes the most beautiful art comes from the darkest places, even if those places are within ourselves. The next family dinner felt like walking into a minefield. Lily sat as far from me as possible, stabbing her salad like it had personally offended her. Everett's face was thunderous. Clearly he'd heard about the donor situation. "Well," he said as soon as we were all seated, "this has been an interesting week." Noah shifted in his chair beside me. "Dad, no, let me finish." Everett set down his fork. "I've spent 40 years building this family's reputation, 40 years of careful relationships, strategic decisions, calculated risks." His eyes locked onto mine. "And you threatened to destroy it all over some art program." "I didn't threaten anything," I said calmly. "I protected my work from someone trying to sabotage it." Lily's fork clattered against her plate. "You recorded me. You called my donors enough." Everett's fist hit the table, making the crystal water glasses Jump this ends now, both of you, Everett. Amanda's voice was quiet, but firm. Perhaps we should discuss why Lily felt the need to interfere in the first place. Because she's trying to take over everything. Lily burst out. She comes in here with her paintings and her programs, making us look like some heartless corporate machine, aren't we? I shot back. Isn't that exactly what you've all been to me, a machine that only values profit? That's not fair. Colin started, but I was on a roll now. You want to know why I push so hard for this program? Because every time I walk into this house I feel like I'm suffocating, like everything I am, everything I believe in is being squeezed out of me. The room fell silent. Even Everett looked taken aback. Do you know what it's like? I continued, my voice shaking, to have every dream, every achievement dismissed as a hobby, to be told that unless something makes money it's worthless. We never said. Lily began. You didn't have to. It's in every look, every comment, every time you talk about real work versus what I do. Amanda set down her wine glass. She's right. Everyone turned to stare at her. Whatever it looked like he'd been slapped. She's right, Amanda repeated. We've been horrible to her, Everett, all of us. We've treated her passion like a character flaw instead of a gift that doesn't pay the bills. Lily muttered. Actually, I pulled out my phone. Marcus sent over the latest gallery projections. Would you like to see what your hobby artist sister-in-law is worth on the market? I slid the phone across to Everett. His eyes widened slightly as he read. This is substantial. Yes, I said it is, but you know what? That's not even the point. The point is that art matters. It changes lives. It gives voice to people who've been silenced, like you. Amanda asked softly. The question hit me like a physical blow. Yes, I whispered. Like me? Everett cleared his throat. Carinas, I may have been hasty in my judgment, may have been. Noah's voice was sharp. Dad, you've been dismissing her work for years, and you've been letting him. I turned to my husband, standing by silently, while your family treated me like an embarrassment. Noah flinched. I thought I was keeping the peace. At what cost? Amanda asked. Our souls, our integrity. Lily made a disgusted sound. Oh, please, now we're talking about souls. Yes, Amanda snapped, surprising everyone. Because that's what your father and I lost somewhere along the way. And that's what Carinas is fighting to keep. The silence that followed was deafening. Everett stared at his wife like he'd never seen her before. The program launches in 3 weeks, I said finally, with or without the Brown family support. But ask yourselves this: do you want to be known as the family that tried to stop it, or the family that helped it succeed? Everett picked up his wine glass, swirling the red liquid thoughtfully. You're asking us to change everything we believe in. No, I corrected him. I'm asking you to remember what you used to believe in before everything became about profit margins and market shares. He sat down his glass and looked at me, really looked at me for what felt like the first time in 5 years. The gallery opening, he said slowly. Will there be press coverage? Extensive. And the program participants? They'll be there front and center. He nodded, almost to himself. Then perhaps it's time for the Brown family to show a different side of itself. Lily started to protest, but Everett held up his hand. Enough, Lily. Your sister-in-law has proven her point rather impressively, I might add. I felt tears pricking at my eyes, but blinked them back. This wasn't a complete victory. I could see the calculations still running behind Everett's eyes, but it was a start. Thank you, I said simply as we left. That night Amanda caught my arm again. You know what the real masterpiece is here? What? She smiled. The way you're making us see ourselves clearly for the first time in years. I drove home in silence, thinking about masterpieces and revelations, and how sometimes the most powerful art isn't hung on gallery walls at all. The gallery buzzed with energy on opening night. Women in cocktail dresses mingled with artists in paint-splattered jeans, while photographers' flashes lit up the white walls like lightning. My paintings seemed to pulse with life under the Carefully positioned spotlights, you're trending locally, Rhea announced, showing me her phone. The hashtag dark art transforms is blowing up. Before I could respond, I spotted Everett and Amanda entering. He wore his best suit. She was stunning in midnight blue, but what caught my attention was their body language. They were holding hands. Carinas Everett called out, making his way through the crowd. This is impressive. The press coverage is excellent, Lily added, appearing behind them. She looked uncomfortable but was making an effort. 3 major networks are here. They're not here for the press coverage. Maria stepped forward, gesturing to a group of women gathered near my centerpiece, painting. They're here for them. The PR participants stood proudly beside their own works, smaller pieces displayed alongside mine. Their faces glowed with accomplishment, many accompanied by family members who couldn't stop smiling. Sarah over there, Maria pointed to a woman in her 40s, just sold her first piece, and Lisa's been commissioned to paint a mural for the Children's Hospital. I watched Everett's expression shift as he took in the scene. The businessman's mask slipped just slightly, revealing something that looked almost like wonder. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus's voice carried through the gallery. If I could have your attention, please. The crowd quieted. I felt Colin slip his hand into mine. Tonight marks more than just the opening of a remarkable exhibition, Marcus continued. It represents the launch of the Transform Through Art initiative, a program that proves the power of creativity to change lives. Applause rippled through the room. I saw Cash near the back giving me a thumbs up, and none of this would be possible without our founding sponsor. Marcus gestured toward us, the Brown family. Everett stepped forward, and I held my breath. We hadn't discussed what he would say when my daughter-in-law first approached me about this program. He began. I saw it as a distraction from real business. He paused, looking around the room. I was wrong. A murmur went through the crowd. Lily's jaw dropped. Business is about value creation, Everett continued, but value isn't just measured in dollars. Sometimes it's measured in transformed lives, in rediscovered confidence, in the light in someone's eyes when they realize their worth. He turned to me. Carinas taught our family that, and we're proud to announce that the Brown Foundation will be expanding this program to 3 additional cities next year. The applause was thunderous. Amanda wiped tears from her eyes while Noah hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Dad, Lily stepped forward. Are you sure about actually? Amanda cut, and I'll be heading the foundation's art initiative personally. She smiled at her daughter. Unless you'd like to help. Lily looked around the gallery at the proud artists, the admiring crowds, the positive press coverage, and something seemed to click. I might have some ideas about corporate partnerships, she said slowly. A reporter approached, notebook in hand. Mr. Brown, could you tell us more about your foundation's commitment to the arts? As Everett turned to answer, Maria touched my arm. Come meet someone. She led me to a quiet corner where a young woman stood studying one of my paintings. She couldn't have been more than 20. This is Jamie, Maria said. She just joined our program last week. Your painting. Jim's voice was barely above a whisper. The woman stepping into the light. That's how I feel when I paint, like I'm finally visible. My throat tightened. That's exactly what it means. I never thought. She wiped her eyes quickly. I never thought people like me could do something like this. People like you, I said firmly, can do anything. A commotion near the entrance drew our attention. Cash was escorting an elderly woman through the crowd. She moved slowly, leaning on a cane, but her eyes were sharp as they scanned the room. Is that Rhea? Grabbed my arm. My first art teacher, I confirmed. Mrs. Rivera. I invited her last week. The old woman made her way to us, examining my paintings with a critical eye. Finally, she turned to me. You did good, kid, she said simply. You did real good. The tears I'd been holding back all evening finally spilled over. Mrs. Rivera pulled me into a fierce hug. Thank you, I whispered. No, she replied. Thank you for proving me right. Art does save Lives. I looked around the gallery at Jamie, finding her voice at Lily, and Amanda, planning together at Everett, actually listening to a program participant explain her work at Noah. Watching me with pride and love. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Major gallery in Chicago wants to host the exhibition next. You've started something big here. But looking at Jay's shining eyes and Mrs. Rivera's proud smile, I knew the biggest changes weren't happening on gallery walls or in press coverage. They were happening in hearts and minds, one brushstroke at a time. And that was worth more than all the brown family millions combined. The autumn sunlight streamed through my studio windows, catching the dust motes dancing in the air. I stood before a blank canvas, brush poised, when a familiar voice broke my concentration. Still painting in this tiny studio, Lily stepped through the doorway, designer heels clicking on the concrete floor. The foundation could get you a better space. You know I like it here. I turned to face her. What brings you to my humble hobby space? She winced at the word hobby. Okay, I deserved that. She held up a folder. The numbers from our first satellite program just came and want to see. I set down my brush as she spread the documents across my paint-splattered table. Photographs spilled out, women standing proudly beside their artwork, faces glowing with achievement. 38 graduates in Chicago. Lily said, her business voice softening. 26 have already sold pieces or received commissions, and the others 2 are teaching art to kids now. One started a small gallery cooperative. She paused. You were right, Karina's about everything. Before I could respond, more footsteps echoed in the hallway. Amanda appeared carrying a canvas wrapped in brown paper. Is that? I started. She nodded, carefully unwrapping it. My first painting in 30 years. The canvas revealed a garden scene, not technically perfect, but full of life and color. In the foreground, a woman stood at an easel, while another watched over her shoulder. It's us, I realized from the program launch. Yes, Amanda traced the brush strokes with her finger. I've been taking classes with Maria in secret at first, but now Dad actually brags about having 2 artists in the family. Lily finished, rolling her eyes, but smiling. The studio door opened again. Noah and Everett entered, deep in conversation. The Seattle location is confirmed. Noah was saying the waiting list is already full. Good. Everett nodded. What about the scholarship program Karina's proposed? Already funded. Lily cut in. I moved some investments around. You did? I stared at her. She shrugged. Turns out art is a pretty solid investment. Who knew I did? Ria called from her studio across the hall. Been telling you all for years. Everett walked to my blank canvas, studying it with the same intensity he once reserved for spreadsheets. What will this one be? I'm not sure yet. I picked up my brush again. Sometimes you have to start painting to discover what you're trying to say, like running a business, he mused, or a family. Speaking of family, Noah pulled out his phone. Cash is on his way with the final paperwork for the foundation's expansion, and Jez bringing her portfolio. Amanda added she's ready to teach her first class. I smiled, remembering the shy young woman from the gallery opening. Now one of our most passionate instructors, you know, Lily said quietly. I never apologized for trying to sabotage everything. No, you didn't. I'm sorry. She met my eyes directly. I was scared of what? Of change, of being wrong, of she gestured around the studio. Of all this, meaning more than what I'd built my life around. I dipped my brush and paint a rich, deep blue. Want to know a secret? I was scared too, still am sometimes, but you did it anyway. Amanda said yes. I made the first stroke on the canvas, bold and sure, because being scared of something doesn't make it wrong. Everett cleared his throat. I suppose I owe you an apology too. You don't? I do. He stepped closer to the canvas. I was wrong about art being worthless, about you being. He struggled with the words, less than what this family needed. I added another stroke of blue, then reached for gold. You know what I've learned? Sometimes the things we think will break a family actually make it stronger, like art. Lily Asked like truth, I corrected like standing up for what you believe in even. When it's hard, especially when it's hard. The painting was taking shape now, a phoenix rising from swirling darkness, its wings touched with gold. Beautiful, Amanda whispered. Yes, Everett agreed. And I knew he wasn't just talking about the painting. Cash's voice echoed down the hallway, mixed with Jay's laughter and Maria's warm greeting. Soon the studio would be full of people, plans, possibilities. But for now, I looked at my family, my real family, transformed by truth and art and love, and felt something settle in my heart, ready to change more lives. Noah asked, squeezing my hand. I added one final stroke of gold to the phoenix's wing, always, because that's the thing about art, about family, about life itself. The masterpiece is never really finished. You just keep adding colors, keep taking chances, keep believing in the power of transformation. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to face the blank canvas, you create something more beautiful than revenge could ever be. You create hope.
Thank you for watching Karen's story until the end. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe for more untold realities.